Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
It's important to remember, boys and girls, that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. And if you are within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with, once again, as always, my name is David Voigt. I am your host for this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals and pick their brain not only about current projects, but influences, how they got in the business, what they see the business doing going forward, and so on and so forth. A little bit of everything, but that's what we like to do. And if you need to subscribe to our podcast, may we recommend that you visit the people over at Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts to make sure you don't miss an episode. And in case you want to catch up, everything is archived over at our YouTube channel at In the Seats. Also, if you don't mind, please don't forget to follow us on social media at either In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all the latest updates. And please visit us where it all started over at intheseats.ca for the latest and greatest movie news, reviews, and all good things under the sun of the moving image that we like to talk about over there. On today's episode, we had a real treat. We are talking a little Action U.S.A., which is hitting virtual theaters down in our friends to the south this coming Friday. But it is a long-lost action film from legendary stuntman John Stewart, and it's full of practical effects, and it is a absolute full-on hoot, the kind of thing you'll watch at the drive-in and sort of hoot, cheer, and eat some popcorn for. And it really is, in many ways, the sort of progenitor or early forebearer for movies like Fast and the Furious and a few others, because it is 100% practical effects. There isn't any digital or any CGI. It is a flat-out action movie, and we talked with John Stewart not only about the film, but about his career as a stuntman, just the logistics of making an independent film that is pretty well all action-based, and this is a good 90 minutes of wall-to-wall action. And we talk about stunts and sort of the art of the stuntman and a couple of stunts that maybe were a little too close for comfort. But I hope you enjoy this conversation, because I know I did. And if you get a chance, check out Action U.S.A., because if you're an action fan, it is an absolute hoot. All right, now I guess just to kick it off, obviously, I absolutely love the film. It was an absolute blast. But I mean, it's one of these kind of films that you almost forget exists. And I mean, when I was watching it and I was looking at the stunts and I was looking at everything, I was like, it would be borderline illegal to try to do some of this stuff now. Can you walk me through just sort of the initial sort of kickoff of making the movie? And
Yeah, well, are you there?
yes.
Oh, hey. Yeah, well, like I had gotten hurt on a stunt, and I was healing, and I was writing a script, this script, and my neighbor came to me, who was not in the movie business. He goes, "What are you doing?" Blah blah blah. I told him I'm writing the script, but I directed a lot of second units before this, but never directed the whole movie. So I said, I want to direct it. And he goes, "Well, you have the financing yet?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, finish your script. I'll go get the financing." I didn't think nothing of it. So he owned a Porsche dealership, and his name is Wolfram Berger. He owned a local Porsche dealership, and down there, but he wasn't in the film business. So he got a loan against his Porsche dealership. He went to Texas and made the movie. It was about as simple as that. We were supposed to shoot it in L.A., but Tom Calloway, my director of photography and a friend, said, why don't you come to Waco and make it? We can probably get you some better deals. So that's what we did. We went down there to make it. And when I got to Waco, I rewrote the whole script, because when I wrote it for LA, I didn't know I could get all these things in Texas. So I literally rebuilt the whole thing when I got there.
Was filmmaking always something that you wanted to do?
I always wanted to be a stuntman since I was 10 years old. Yeah. I had no desire to direct or produce or write. I just wanted to do stunts. Everything else kind of just fell into play. I mean, I was doing a lot of stunts, big stunts back in those days. There was no CGI. And then a lot of directors back then didn't know how to direct action, so I ended up directing the action, and then they started giving me the second units to direct, and some of the movies back then were all actions, so I was just about directing the movie anyway, and then and that's how I fell into directing. I didn't plan on it. It just kind of happened.
Same with stunt, being a stuntman, or is that, I mean, to fall into it sounds like a bad pun, but.
No, I had planned that. I wanted to be a stunt guy since I was 10 years old. So that's what I wanted to do my whole life. I spent my childhood jumping mini bikes, all the crazy stuff kids do. And I got my first job in Boston doubling Matt Dillon on a film when I think I was 17 or 18, and then moved to LA shortly after that. But I always wanted to do stunts. Since I was 10, I knew what I wanted to do.
It's such a, I mean, it's such a like watching the film, like just being able to see just sort of the smashed out windows and the shots where you're obviously on the car going that fast. I'm kind of curious. Walk me through some of the technical challenges of shooting stuff like that, especially when you're shooting practically.
Yeah, I mean, that's like I say, there's no CGI in that movie. Everything you see was real, is what it was. Like I said, I had Tom Calloway, my director of photography. We had done a bunch of second unit stuff, other movies, car chases. So I had a good team. I used to hire the same 7 stunt guys every movie. So if I wasn't doing the stunts myself, I would have one of my guys do it. Bob Ivey, Gary Beale, all those guys. And we just had a good team. We shot this movie in 18 days. So, some people spend 18 days on it, one car chase. We did this whole movie, dialogue, stunts, and everything in 18 days. But we're able to do it because I shoot very fast. I know what I want. I had the same camera guy I always work with. He knows what I want. I had rental cars rigged with camera mounts on them with 2-seat cameras on the front of them at all times. So if I got like that chase in the parking garage with the Porsche, we were just eating lunch. And I got finished early, and I just jumped in the rent-a-car and went up to this parking garage. It was empty on a Saturday, and got all that footage, And then I called my stunt guy. One of my stunt guys says, "Hey, grab the Porsche. I'm going to chase around this garage." So that stuff I just threw in. But we were able to pull it off, because the same with the effects guy. I've worked with him for many years, Kevin McCarthy, and he knew what I liked. So we were able to pull it off because we had a good team.
How do you think? Because I mean, this film is such a throwback to practical stunts. And we see stuff that happens today, and so much of it is dots on a blue screen or things that don't necessarily we get appreciated. What do you think gets lost in sort of action filmmaking when it's not practical?
Well, that's good. And actually read a review on Action USA that just came out. I forget what it was, since it's been released at the theaters now. It's getting a lot of reviews, but someone said that Action USA paved the way for Fast and Furious. And I never thought about it, but it kind of makes sense, all these older movies, Smokey and the Bandit, Hooper, Action USA, all made by stunt guys, and they could do anything now. Back then, what I did on action is I knew ahead of time what stunts I was going to do. So I would cast stunt guys to play the acting role. Right. Then I could show their faces going out the window, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Up the car. So a lot of the, the players, actors in action were stunt people. So I didn't have to double them. I think years ago, the audience was being impressed. You did a fall off a 16-story building. Wow, that's great. Nowadays, they can make anybody do anything with green screen and all that good kind of stuff, computer generated images. So I think the audiences today don't appreciate it, they could care less. Anything could be done. The people that are older, like my age, that were around back in the day, appreciate this movie because they knew back then there was no CGI and everything we're doing is real, and today, like you say, you can show the actor flying off 100 feet right to the ground with, the use of CGI, and it's not as thrilling. I don't like CGI movies, to be honest, because some of it goes over the top. Even some of the Action U.S.A was over the top, but we really did it,
Well, and it's one of those things because, I mean, it was obviously an independent shoot, and the art, like people, like independent action movies don't necessarily happen now, but in the 70s and 80s, they did all the time. And I mean, it's just it's a world that
I guess audiences right now don't necessarily understand all that much because it's you could do stuff on a budget. You could do great looking stunts if you had the right people.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have a big budget. We shot this whole movie for $490,000, which is nothing. It's peanuts,
Mm.
you know. And I couldn't have done that if I did in LA. The only reason I pulled that off is because of Waco. They gave me so much free stuff. I don't even know where to begin. Even the Corvette at the beginning of the movie was the guy when I was at 7-Eleven buying a Slurpee pulled up in that and asked if I could put it in the movie. Um, that happened all throughout the movie. That's why I rewrote stuff. I'm like, what? You got me a house I can blow up and a gas station? I'm going to. I drove David Redskin, the writer, crazy. I had originally written the story and then brought him in to write the script and adapt that. But I had to fly him down there because I was rewriting, oh, you got a helicopter? New scene, you know what I mean? And we only had an 18-day shoot. So I think he went crazy in that movie. I think he hates me to this day.
How has the art of doing practical stunts evolved? Because I mean, I've got to imagine that there isn't necessarily a lot of new science or a lot of new technology behind, dangling somebody by a leg outside of a helicopter. It's all probably the same kind of rigging and same kind of setup.
Yeah, I mean, back when I started, it was trial and error. That's why I've had 2 broken backs, a broken neck, a femur that was behind me. Because we were figuring stuff out when, how to make stuff work back in those days. There's no school, no books, nothing. Before we invented, jump harnesses and bungee cord and stuff, we were breaking backs doing car jumps. So it was trial and error. As far as the helicopter, the guy hanging out, I had a cable up his leg attached to the helicopter, so he couldn't have fell. The only bad thing is if the helicopter lost a motor, had to rotate, he would have been squished. But obviously the cable wasn't there when he fell off the helicopter. But that's just nuts and bolts and wires, and that stuff's been going on for many years.
Well, and I mean, there's a lot of I love that you say trial and error because that's basically filmmaking in a nutshell. And I've got to imagine that even plays into stunt work as well, because there's got to be a certain thrill and a certain sort of desire to be able to pull it off, even with the risk of something going terribly wrong if it doesn't go right.
Well, yeah, that's half the fun. I mean, I can't get most of the stuff that I've done in the movies that I've done, I wrote myself. So I can't get mad at anybody. I wrote the stuff and now I got to figure out how to do it, but there's very few times I don't think we've ever said it can't be done. We just said we'll figure out a way to make it done safely. You know what I mean? And sometimes it doesn't necessarily happen that way, but you just got that's the fun part for me, planning it, thinking the idea up, figuring out how to do it and executing it and seeing it on the screen, sometimes, your mind is bigger than what you want to be doing at the time. Then it comes to that day that you actually got to do it. And it's been a few times I'm like, why did I write this damn scene in a script? You know what I mean? Most of the scripts I got back then were empty. There were a lot of HBO movies like a big one I did was Cold Steel with Sharon Stone. I got the script and it was nothing in it as far as action, but the producers knew me. I've done films with them. They said, write us some good stuff. So I did. I wrote a car chase and the guy falling off the building at the end, and it was just cars going into a speedway. It was just nuts, but I had a ball directing it and pulling it off. So that's the fun part for me, is thinking up these creative ideas. Like you say now, sky's the limit. You can get on your computer and put dots and just make anything happen. So back then it was more challenging,
Is it more fun for you to work in sort of a practical world versus maybe a shoot like a Phantasm, where that you can go maybe a little more gonzo with the things that you're trying to pull off?
Yeah, Phantasm. I did a couple of the Phantasms, and even that, that little ball was on a string. So that was all pretty much practical there too. We did that huge pipe ramp at the end of it in the hearse. I think that was in 3 or 4. I don't remember the number that was in. But, that was an amazing stunt. And that car flew. I don't know if you've seen the movie, but
I have, yeah.
That hearse just flew. If it had wings, it would have took off and went to Burbank, Went over every camera we set there. And Don Cascarelli was just out of his mind, man. It turned out so good. I think we had a speed gun on that. And first of all, that was one of the biggest ramps ever made. In fact, we cut that ramp up so no one could kill himself after we did that stunt. It was a pipe ramp, but it was one of the biggest and highest ever made with a kicker on the end of it. You know, a lot of pipe ramps just go straight up, but we, the last couple of feet, put a kicker. And Bob Ivy did a stunt, and he came in, I think, like about 80 miles an hour, 85 miles an hour. And it just was unbelievable, you know? And if you look at it today, oh, that's got to be fake, that's CGI. No, we really did that stuff, you know?
Because in many ways, I mean, I like, at least from the outside looking in, it almost feels like part of the job is trying to sort of reinvent the laws of physics sometimes.
Yeah, it is. I always had a good eye for it. I could pretty much, I use a lot of cameras in crash boxes. So what I would do, and this would get the money shots, these would get the shots that you would see in the trailer, the advertising for the movie. I would figure out where the car is going to land, and I would put the camera right there. So that car flew through the air and landed on that camera. And those are the most amazing shots. I think Cold Steel, I went through like 6 or 7 cameras, but the producers didn't care. They're getting great shots, and that's how they were selling the film, with these kind of shots, you know? But I was always pretty good about figuring that stuff out. I didn't get out there with a tape measure, you know, I eyeballed everything. And I had a good sense about it, how fast, you know, what direction I'm coming. And I could usually get the car to land at least 10 feet either in front or behind the camera, but usually I got it right on the camera. And a lot of guys did, you know, mathematics and this and that. I just had a good sense for that stuff. I always have. And that's how I did it anyway. I'm sure other stunt guys, like you say, get out the computer and the calculators and figure this out. And I kind of just eyeballed it, and I knew how fast I was going, how big the ramp was, and that kind of thing.
Now, I mean, as you say, like, as you said, you're not necessarily going to blame anybody for any injuries you've had because you've designed practically every stunt you've been a part of. But can you boil down to like 1 or 2 stunts that maybe, that was a little too close for call?
Yeah, I don't blame anybody for my injuries. Like you say, I wrote them, I executed them, I set it up, and, you know, but one, and this wasn't, here's a good example. Most of the stunts, like you say, we set up, we execute it, we pretty much know it's going to go okay, usually. But one stunt, it was for Don Cascarelli too. I forget the name of the movie. I think it was called Survival Quest, but I got a call 11 at night. One of the producers almost drowned in the Kern River, Class 5 rapids.
Oh, geez.
And he said, get up here. We think we need stunt guys instead of actors. And I'm like, really, Don? You should have told me before. And we get up there, and to hear the roar of those rapids. I don't know if you ever been around Class 5 rapids.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so he wanted us to do 2 things. First, he wanted us to swim down them. Then he wanted a scene where Universal built the log. He wanted us to be on the log riding it down here.
What the fuck? Oh my God.
In fact, 3 of the stunt guys I brought up looked at the rapids and went home. They said, we're not doing this. So we ended up doing it. I got a couple of other guys to come up and do them. And we pulled it off. But the first time we went down, you don't know what to expect. I got caught under a washing machine. I'm sucked underwater. You know, those rocks, we just hit the rocks. And we had to go for like over a mile, I think. And at first we tried to fight it. And then you can't fight this.
No.
So the second take, we said, let's pad up. Because we had to do it like 6 times. We had to do it 6 times a day on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, for 2 weekends or 3 weekends. Don likes a lot of angles, and he's, you know, great director, but he's very slow, and he likes a lot of angles, and which is great. I love the way he does that. But we learned let's pad up. The rocks underneath the water was smooth because of the algae. Let's not fight it. Let's just go with it. So, and then when they brought the log in, that was a different story. All hell broke loose then. But that's scary because that's Mother Nature. What are you going to plan? You know, we have safety guys on the side that they couldn't have thrown us a rope if they wanted to. They would never have got to us. And we couldn't have swam against the stuff. It was too powerful. So that, to me, that was one of the most scariest things we did because you're dealing with, you know, Mother Nature, the roar of Mother Nature with the rapids. And when I seen the movie come out, I think we're in the movie for like 20 seconds. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Oh, God. Does that make it easier on something like Action USA? Because I mean, obviously, you can say to any of your team, it's like, well, hey, I'll do it.
Well, they know I'll do it, so they'll do it. It was always a thing to say, you know, if you know, because they see me do all this stuff, and I didn't ask them to do anything haven't done in the past myself, but they were all eager, you know, they were waiting for the chance to do their big stunt, you know what I mean? and people like Bob Ivy, Gary Beale, those guys are rock stars. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. And they were from Texas also, but they were living in LA at the time where Bob Ivy was. But Bob's the king of car crashes. So when I started directing more, they don't like you doing stunts when you're directing, obviously.
Yeah.
The first companies don't like that. So Bob would take over doing the car crashes that I ever do, and he just, he did phenomenal.
Now, how did the like Action USA come back to audiences that now we're seeing it again now? Because I mean, obviously, films like this can be lost in a vault that, from a company that went out of business, God knows when. And like, how did you ultimately sort of get the control back of Action USA, or did you always have it?
Oh yeah, I always had it. Me and my partner Wolfram Berger, we produced it and financed it ourselves, along with Bob Ivy. Put some money in. Another stunt guy, Gunther Simon, put a little bit of money in, but Wolf put up the most. So we've already had it, but it did its run back in 88, 89, and we kind of got busy with the career. I started directing Power Rangers and all this stuff, and people got busy with the career. We kind of forgot about it. But I've always been saying all these years, we got to get Action USA on HBO or TV or something. Because I knew it had a cult following, because I would get emails all the time. They were screening it in New York, was screening it here, little, backyard screening. So I knew it had a following, but no one ever really did anything with it. So I was on Tom Calloway's ass this year. So let's get Action USA out there. So he had talked to, I think, Giant, that was Verdugo Films at first, now they're Giant, about redigitizing it and making it all nice. And at the same time, unbeknownst to me that he was doing that, someone showed it to Tim League at Alamo Drafthouse Theaters. They had a backyard screening of it, and they said, "Hey, Tim, you got to see this." They brought him over VHS tape. Then I got a phone call, a message on my machine. Hey, I thought it was a prank call, to be honest. And but he left a number. I called him back. He answered the phone. I go, "Okay, I guess this is real." So he said, "I watched the movie, absolutely loved it. We want to take it out to the world and put it in theaters." And I'm like, "Great." And then the pandemic hit, and I thought, "Okay, well, this deal's good, not going to happen." But ultimately, he made it happen, and I guess it opened November 6th, and it's going places on the 13th further. So Tim League made it happen. I don't know what to tell you. He's a great guy, and I'm glad he had the power to make it happen, and he loved the movie, which is amazing. These, successful businessmen, our age, are loving this movie and making this happen. That's what blows my mind. Because when I wrote this thing, I didn't take this movie, I didn't write it for a serious plot and twists and all that. I just wanted to do a campy action picture that was a lot of fun, a no-brainer, have some popcorn and watch some great stunts. That's what I thought about it. I never thought people like Tim would be interested in it. You know what I mean? Especially years later. So I'd forgotten about the movie, and then Tommy was working with Verdugo and Giant, so they had called Tim and they made a deal with Tim. So I guess that's how it all came together. I was working with Tim, but I didn't know Tommy Calloway was doing a deal with someplace else. And then when I found out, I said, "Shit, I'm hoping that doesn't screw Tim's out." But I guess Tim knew the guys anyway, so they all made a deal and everybody's happy.
Well, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I mean, just to start putting a bow on this, because there's one stunt in particular that I have to ask you about in the film. Because in films past, whenever we would see someone go off a bridge or go off a building, it'd be like a swan dive. They'd be pancaked. It'd be almost like they're trying to dive into a pool.
Yeah.
But in your film, there's twists, there's turns, there's flips. It actually looks like the guy is falling. And like, how much more dangerous is the stunt to do it like that? That's something I've always been fascinated by.
Well, it's a lot more dangerous to do it like that, because if you don't end up in the right position for landing, then you're screwed. And there's heights. We did these stunts on Action USA, you'd be dead in a second, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, it always, if you could put a little twist and flair, it always looks better than just, like you say, a swan dive off a building. And that takes a combination of a stunt guy with some big balls and a gymnast that can do the twist,
Yeah. Now, I guess just to put a bow on this, and this is a stupid question, but I got to ask it. As this epic stuntman through the years, what's your favorite action movie, or what's your favorite stunt in an action movie? Maybe one that you weren't in.
I when I was a kid, I loved, as all stunt guys did, they loved the movie Hooper.
Right. Okay.
Because Hal Needham's, like, if there was a photo under the word stuntman in the dictionary, should be Hal Needham's photo because he just looked like a stunt guy, he looked like a badass, and he was. You know, this guy used to test parachutes in the Army. He did everything. And he was friends with Burt Reynolds and roommates and all that stuff. So he got to direct, you know, Smoking the Bandit and Hoop and all that. So I really love those kind of action movies. Smoking the Bandit, you know, and they had a little bit of comedy in them too. You know, it was fun. You know, it wasn't real serious. Of course, everybody likes Bullet and all the, you know, famous car chases and all that stuff. That's more real. You know what I mean? But I pretty much liked Hooper, Smoking the Bandit. You know, all those movies. And I'm sure as most stunt guys did growing up.
And you know what? I think Action USA definitely fits in that category. And I just want to say thanks again for the time today, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Be safe.
Here's you too, Ben.